Well, yesterday, the Naira was flat at the import and export window at 410 Naira 90 kobo for a dollar, depreciated by 0.2% to 499 Naira per dollar in the parallel market. To discuss more on happenings in the FX market, Omotola Abimbola, investment analyst with Chapel Hill, Denham. Thank you so much, Mr. Omotola, for joining us this morning.
Thank you, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
All right, so pressures are resurfacing once again in the FX market, with the Naira touching 499 Naira to a dollar in the black market. What's driving this? What's going on?
Thanks for the question. So regarding what is happening in the black market, it's very, very hard to actually pinpoint a particular reason for the volatility that we are witnessing there because it's a very speculative market that lacks depth. But one thing we can see is that we look at events occurring in the global and domestic economy. It does appear as if demand is recovering once again, both in the global and domestic economy. As we are seeing economies being reopened, on the back of the strong vaccination campaigns that we are seeing all across the world. And the same thing we can say for Nigeria, where the economy is gradually reopening once again. And typically, when we see a very strong demand, it aggregates demand in the economy, particularly for services, such as international travel, etc. We normally experience a lot of pressures in the foreign exchange market. One key factor that we can probably, allude to the pressures we are seeing in that market, beyond speculative forces, of course, is probably because, we are seeing demand once again increasing in the economy due to reopening plans. On the other side, regarding supply, I don't think we have seen a very significant rebound in terms of supply. We do know that last year in September, central bank resumed intervention still across different segments of the FX market, particularly the BDC segment. So then they started selling $10,000 per BDC twice a week. But given the fact that economic activities are now strengthening and demand is for international travel, perhaps one thing we could say is that the level of supply in that market is no longer enough actually sustain the demand pressures in the BDC segment. So, I mean, we've seen a couple of developments in the markets as recently. We saw the central bank, a week ago, actually adopts the versus and exporters window rates with the official peg or the official exchange rate for the economy, and that's a very positive step in terms of the goal of converging the different multiple exchange rates in the market. But I think
Okay.
more has to be done. We need to get more supply into the market, and I think the CBN as also needs to allow for more flexibility in the pricing of the currency versus an exporters window, so that we can unlock more autonomous foreign currency into the economy.
Okay. All right, Matala. So, all prices have been on a tear, lately. Is there any hope that, the pressures might, actually ease and we may start to see some, convergence in the FX rates?
You made a very fantastic point. We are seeing crude oil prices rallying once again. Yesterday, I believe oil prices were at the Brent crude futures, which is the major global benchmark, was above $71 per barrel in the global oil market. And that's a pointer to, both recovering demand, the global economy, as well as the fact that, supply, there are so many supply constraints in the market, coming from the fact that, the OPEC plus cartel, they've been very, very cautious in actually increasing their production. We do know that last year, at the peak of the COVID-19 crisis, the cartel, currently had agreed to trim global oil to trim their production by about 9.7 million barrels per day. But up till today, they've only reduced that cost by roughly 3 million barrels per day. So supply not increasing as fast as the market would like it. And we're also seeing inventory, being drawn down, back to levels that we last saw before the COVID-19 crisis. So demand is picking up for oil, and supply, on the other hand, is not increasing as much as the markets would like it. And that's why we are seeing the sharp uptick in oil prices. Now, regarding how this would impact uh, Nigeria, particularly the foreign exchange markets, I think this is a very positive development for the economy in general, particularly for the fiscal accounts. So we do know that the 2021 budget assumption was based on a crude price forecast of $40 per barrel. So we are having $17 per barrel at the moment. That is sizable upside in terms of oil prices. But where it appears to be underperforming, I think it's production. So the
Okay.
production volume that was assumed in the budget is about 1.9 million barrels per day. Meanwhile, we are still producing, less than roughly 1.7 million barrels per day. So for fiscal
Okay.
accounts, it's positive. And then for external accounts, particularly for the FX market, I think it's a positive development, but it might not be enough to completely offset all the pressures that we are witnessing in the FX market. And our
Okay.
base case scenario is that they need to see, further devaluation of the currency in the high and low window.
All right, Motola. Some analysts have argued that before we can get any meaningful, response from this market, the oil market, that the oil price will have to get to at least $103. What do you think?
I don't think we need to get to that level. Based on our own, scenario forecast, at if we could manage to get oil prices, back to, around 80 to $100 per barrel, and we can get production level, very, very important production level, back to pre-crisis level. To a very large extent, Nigeria can actually, start recording foreign account surpluses again. So, which would to a very large extent ease some of the pressures that we are seeing in the FX markets. But I think if we even go beyond what is happening in the oil market, we also need to pay attention to what is happening regarding the government borrowing plan. So based on the 2021 budget, the government can borrow up to $6.1 billion externally outside of Nigeria in terms of foreign currency loans. So, based on that, we do understand that the federal government now in the process of actually raising, debt from the international capital markets. So if we could have a very successful transaction, maybe might not be able to get the entire $6 billion in one. But if we can get a substantial portion of that, through the external borrowing, I think that will contribute in terms of trying to alleviate pressures in the FX market. But another major upside is for the Naira, or what I can say, a positive development that could happen for the Naira is the current conversation at the IMF, on allocation of SDR, standard drawing rights. So the IMF is talking about allocating about some $50 billion of SDR. Based on Nigeria's quota in the IMF, that could imply that we could get up to, $3.4 billion SDR allocation. I've also had a number of developed countries rather that are now talking about trying to lend their own SDR to developing countries such as Nigeria to aid, the country's response to the COVID-19 pandemic. So if Nigeria is very lucky enough, to number one, get a substantial foreign currency loan in terms of the 2021 government borrowing plan, if we're also able to secure, SDR allocation, from the IMF, and also get more developed countries to actually lend, to Nigeria from the SDR reserve, then perhaps we could be thinking of close to $10 billion of autonomous that will be going into the central bank's account. So I think to a very large extent that will hit them actually, begins to increase their level of intervention in the foreign exchange market. But I think one key thing is very, very important.
So we're almost out of time. So there's a debate going on about the true value of Naira. Would you say at this time that Naira is overvalued or undervalued or just right?
Okay, that's an interesting question. To answer that question, we think that it depends on the markets that you are looking at. based on fundamental analysis, based on what we call the real effective exchange rate that is being used to determine the fair value of a currency, based on inflation rate differential between the country and its trading partner. It does appear, that the naira is valued in the investors and exporters window, where the currency is currently trading at 411 naira, and that level of valuation, based on that real analysis, suggests that naira could be valued in that particular segment up 10 to 15%. So if you look at the hand here window, our response will be that, definitely it does appear as if the naira is actually overvalued in that market. But if you look at the parallel market or the street market, purely based on fundamental factors, not based on speculative forces this time around, it does appear as if naira is actually undervalued, in that particular segment. But like I said, the fair value based on the real effective exchange rate is between 450 to 455 naira. But I think for currencies, beyond fundamental valuation, sentiment also play a very big role in determining the value of currency. So, and that's why it's very important for the authorities, the monetary and fiscal authorities, to try as much as possible, to try to ensure that that there are positive, that we have more positive sentiment drivers, for the currency that could aid, the process of trying to convert the multiple exchange rate. The last time round when we had a similar foreign exchange crisis between 2016, which is 2014 rather, and 2017, Nigeria had to actually overcompensate, by devaluing more than it should have, due to the fact that we had a closed market for a very long period of time, and we virtually chased foreign investors from the market due to lack of flexibility in the pricing of currency. So, in terms of how we resolve this particular scenario we are facing as a country, I think it's very important, that the central bank ensures that we have more flexibility in the pricing of the currency that would, at the end of the day, encourage more foreign portfolio into the country.
All right. Thank you so much, Omotola Bimbola, investment analyst at Chapel Hill, Denham, for sharing your thoughts with us this morning on what's happening at the Forex market.